What's up, everyone? It's Shaletta. I'm here getting a phone for one of my newly minted teenagers with Xfinity Mobile. They've got great options, affordable plans, and solid coverage that works for our whole family. With Xfinity Mobile, my daughter can stay connected with me wherever she goes. And did you know when you sign up, you can get an extra phone line free for a full year? Switch to Xfinity Mobile today for more savings, more smiles, and more ways to stay connected.
In Minnesota, we pride ourselves on our nation-leading voter turnout and safe, secure elections. Elections allow us to make our voices heard and stand up for the communities and issues we care about. To exercise your right to vote, first make sure that you are registered to vote. After registering to vote, make a plan to vote on or before Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Learn about how to register to vote, cast your ballot, find your polling place, and more by visiting mnvotes.org.
It's Not Your Fault is a podcast for parents, caregivers, and young people navigating the world and its challenges. Here's your host, Brandon Jones.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of It Is Not Your Fault, a Teen Mental Health podcast. I am your host, Brandon Jones, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about parents and caregivers and how you can support teens struggling with loneliness and isolation. We are entering the winter months here in our year, and in places like Minnesota, where it's super cold during the wintertime, it's very easy for folks to hibernate within their homes. However, there's another phenomenon that's taking place. We have young people who are increasingly in numbers isolating from their peers. And when I say increasingly, this is something that we've noticed since the pandemic, where tons of young people are selecting and choosing not to be as socially engaged as before. And during the pandemic, it was a lot easier for young people to do this because of so many restrictions we had from socializing with each other. And now that we are removed from that time period and we're, having the ripple effects of the pandemic, we're seeing a much different dynamic take place. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do if the young people in your life are struggling with loneliness and isolation. So even though we're seeing an uptick in this, we're still a very highly connected world. We are a very highly connected world. We can talk to people all around the world at any given time, really by just pressing a few buttons on our phones and on our computers. But even though we're a highly connected world, there's still many young people who face loneliness, and sometimes it can lead to more significant mental health challenges. So as a parent and caregiver, knowing that you can help, or sometimes knowing that you can help, sometimes you feel like you can't help, that can be very overwhelming. It can bring down your kind of motivation. It can bring down your self-esteem and even some of your self-efficacy as a parent, that you can't help kind of bring a young person out of some of the loneliness and isolation that they may be facing. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And that's going to be our focus for today, is how do we help and support young people when they are going through this struggling time. So let's talk about how loneliness can manifest itself in various different ways. Some common signs of loneliness are withdrawal from social activities, especially those ones that they previously enjoyed. So if you have a young person who enjoyed, going to have ice cream at Dairy Queen with their friends, or, going to having sleepovers, or, meeting people at the park, or playing in a sport, or whatever the case, maybe they're part of a youth group at church, whatever the engagement is, they no longer have interest or desire to do those things. That's usually one of the first telltale signs. The next is increased time spent alone, where you may have young people who isolate in their rooms or in the basement, or they're outside but they're by themselves, they're with headphones in and a hoodie over their head. That's one that I see pretty often with a lot of teens, but they're spending a lot of time alone, online, and in their rooms. And you may also notice the third thing is a change in mood, where you see an increased change of irritability and sadness. Now, this one can be tricky. This one can be tricky because a lot of teens are irritable. A lot of teens have sadness. It's a part of their development, and it's a part of their separation from their parents from time to time as well. But it is a sign of loneliness. So if you see it on a consistent basis, it may raise an eyebrow or two of what's happening, what's going on with the young people in your life. And then physical symptoms as well. And I mentioned these two, or really I'm going to mention three pretty often. And these are usually signs that something's going on that you need to pay attention to. If you notice that the young people in your life are starting to have issues around hygiene, there's a big telltale sign, especially if their patterns have changed around hygiene. So they took a shower pretty consistently. They brushed their teeth. They brushed their hair. They put new clothes on, etc. They kept their things clean, neat, and nice. Usually, when that shifts, and all of a sudden they're not brushing their teeth, they're not taking a shower, they're not combing or brushing their hair. These are things that you can notice. Say, okay, something's wrong here. We need to reshift the focus and help this young person get back aligned and get out of this space. So grooming is one thing. Sleep is another one. You may notice that a lot of young people, they won't go to bed. They'll stay up for hours and get like 2 hours of sleep. And that can be a sign as well, especially if they had some healthier sleeping patterns, where they weren't staying up and making themselves sleep deprived and having what's called sleep debt. Maybe I'll talk about that on a future podcast. But when they are not dealing with those things, when they have had healthier habits around sleep and they slid into this habit, that may be a concern of them dealing with isolation or loneliness. Also, extended amount of sleep is another one as well, where they stay asleep for way too many hours. Like they don't get out of bed, and they stay just, they're down for a long time. That can also be a sign as well when it comes to sleep. And then the third kind of physical symptom sign is around appetite. So if their normal eating habits was to eat 2-3 meals, a day, and all of a sudden they're not really eating, they're just snacking here and there, or they're not drinking enough water, or their appetite has shifted significantly. That could be a telltale sign of loneliness and isolation as well. So being aware of the signs is important. But one of the best things to do is to create that, that comfortable space to have the conversation. And this can be a very tough conversation for parents and caregivers, because you want to see your young person succeed. You want to see them flourish, have healthy friends, healthy partners, etc. So sometimes we have to prep ourselves to have these conversations with young people. Can we withstand some of the pain and the frustration that we receive seeing our children or our child going through an issue where they're not engaging with people in the way that you think that they should? So, a teen struggling with loneliness may hesitate to open up. Creating a safe, non-judgmental space encourages them to communicate. So sometimes young people don't want to let you know that they're struggling. They don't want to let you know that they're going through a difficult time. They try to bottle it all up and keep it to themselves. But you're seeing it, right? You're paying attention. You're noticing the change in behavior. You know that they could benefit by engaging in a healthy dialogue with someone. So it's important for you to just open that space of communication. So how do you do that? How do you open that non-judgmental space of communication? Well, the first thing is you have to choose calm moments. Don't wait till things are, tense. There's an argument, there's frustration, and you're like, well, all you do is stay in your room. You need to check yourself on that. Like you don't have to not to jump on your kids too much there. But what I would recommend is choosing those moments that are calm enough where you can have a conversation. It may bring up some anxiety, it may bring up some stress, but that's the chance you have to take to support your child. So make sure that you do consistent check-ins is another important thing. How are you doing? How was your day? If you have a younger child, I would say younger being maybe 10 and under, just doing a quick daily check-in. Hey, how's everything going? Do you need anything? How's your friends is a good question to ask to see if they are even connecting with other people. So you want to kind of put yourself in position to be able to have that dialogue and know kind of what the status is. Now, a lot of young people say, I don't know. That's their way of avoiding the conversation. And I think that it's important for parents and caregivers to give a little pushback there. Well, why don't you know? What's going on? What's happening? Let's take a little time to think about it. Whatever you have to say to kind of draw out more information, I highly recommend that you do that. Ask open-ended questions. How have things been going with you and your friends is one of the best questions you can ask instead of yes, no questions. Try to avoid the yes, no questions because after a while, that's all you're going to get, and you're not going to get too much farther in the conversation because they'll just say, yep, nope, okay, sure, bye. It's yep. So they're just going to give you these like short, quick answers. You're not going to be able to really deep dive into what's going on. And then lastly, if you're going to be asking questions and you're going to be opening up this space for dialogue, you have to use some active listening. You can't just, be, non-empathetic. You can't avoid the immediate advice. You have to be able to give them something back once they tell you. And also you have to work on being non-judgmental. A lot of parents are judgmental and they have ideas of who their children are or where their children may be, but that may not be true based on the child's experience, and then they tell them, and then that's when they get in trouble. So that's another tip. So again, choose calm moments, ask open-ended questions, and practice your active listening skills to the best of your ability. Now, how do we encourage healthy social connections? Right? First, we have to establish some boundaries around technology because that's one of the easiest things to draw young people out of the social engagements is being on their devices. Now, I will say that the devices play a role in socialization. They are a way to socialize, but they shouldn't be the only way. And I think that one of the things that many of our kids miss today is that healthy human interaction that doesn't involve devices for the entire time, and that's a important distinction. And an important thing for us to understand is that devices do have a role. So don't try to go, hardcore with your kid and remove the device completely. That's not going to be favorable at all on your end or theirs, and they will let you know typically that it's not the best thing. But so boundaries with technology is very important. But here are some other important things: extracurricular activities. Make sure you're introducing your young person to new people and new engagements and new activities. That's how they build friends. That's how they get to become known. That's how they build their own skill sets in relating to people. So don't be afraid and don't hesitate to make sure that the child in your life is engaging in extracurricular activities. Volunteering is another way this can happen, right? So one of the more powerful ways for teens to connect meaningfully while focusing on their own needs is to volunteer and help somebody who may be in need. Um, there's tons of opportunities out there to volunteer, whether you're working directly with people or keeping the neighborhood clean or whatever the case may be. Set that up. It helps to engage, helps to build a network. It's a good opportunity. And then intentional family time is the next thing that I think is extremely important when it comes to healthy social engagements. Being able to say, hey, we're gonna have family night every Friday at 6:30. We're gonna eat pizza and we're gonna have Domino's. That's something that keeps the young person included in the household, which a lot of teens end up not being included in the household. So you want to make sure you're inviting them in, you're allowing them to have voice and choice, and you're working collaboratively together as best as possible. So those are some of the quick tips overall. The other thing I would just say is give yourself some self-compassion. Um, you know, Supporting teens who are dealing with loneliness requires a lot of patience, a lot of empathy, and a lot of really small, consistent efforts, like just being there, being patient, listening, sharing little bits of tidbits of information here and there. Like it does take that work, and that work sounds easy, but it's really difficult work to do. It's really difficult to be patient. It's really difficult to have empathy. It's really difficult to have those small, consistent efforts because your life is just as busy. And let's be honest, you may be responding to some of the same things the young person is. So how do you reconcile that? Is a whole nother podcast. But if you're showing up for your kid, the things that I share with you today should be extremely helpful as you move forward. So by recognizing the signs and creating open lines of communication, encouraging a variety of social interaction, variety of social interactions, and setting healthy boundaries with technology, you can help your teen navigate their feelings of loneliness in supportive and positive and proactive ways. That's what we want. We want our kids to be positive and proactive in their engagements, not isolating and not engaging in the human life that they were given. And we connect socially with people. Sometimes we minimize the role of relationships, but they're extremely important to maintaining our well-being and our health. So with that, I'm going to pause there and just say this has been a good podcast overall. Hopefully you don't have a young person who's dealing with loneliness or isolation, but if you do, this podcast may have given you some information to help. You can continue to learn and connect with us 3 ways. The first way is on our Facebook page. And all you have to do is go to the search bar on Facebook, type in It's Not Your Fault Podcast. We'll pop up. You can go there to find articles I write on most of the topics that I cover here on the podcast, as well as other good resources for you and others right there on the Facebook page. Just search in It's Not Your Fault Podcast. The second place you can get a hold of us is at my personal website, www.jegna. That's jegna.org. You can ask me questions there and be connected with me there. And then the third place, if you enjoy me, you probably will enjoy some of the other cool podcasters we have on our network. That network is ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. That is ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today on the podcast. Again, I'm your host, Brandon Jones. This is Not Your Fault Podcast. And I want to encourage you to do a few more things before we close out. Be safe, be constructive, and be well. We'll see you next time. Take care.
To check out previous episodes of It's Not Your Fault, or to learn more about Brandon Jones, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
COVID-19 cases are on the rise, and peak flu season is almost here. Save time and get the updated COVID-19 vaccine and your flu shot at the same time at Hy-Vee. Schedule your updated COVID-19 vaccine and flu shot online today, or just stop by any Hy-Vee pharmacy whenever it's convenient for you. No appointment necessary. Plus, when you get your flu shot at Hy-Vee, earn a 20-cent fuel saver. Your Hy-Vee pharmacy is here to help you and your family stay healthy.
The November election is coming, and adults with autism, you are eligible to participate. As long as you're 18 by November 5th, a U.S. citizen, and have no restrictions to court order, you can exercise your precious right to vote. There are many ways Minnesota makes this process comfortable for you. Right now, you can vote in person at an early voting center. Early voting centers are less busy in this time leading up to Election Day, which means fewer lines and activities. That may make you feel more comfortable. Or you can request an absentee ballot and vote by mail. That's right. You can cast your ballot without leaving your home. You can also vote without leaving your car. If you choose curbside voting on Election Day on November 5th, election judges will bring your ballot right to your vehicle. Once you mark it, they'll put it in the ballot box for you. Make your plan to make your voice heard this election season. Your vote counts. You can learn more at mnvotes.gov. That's mnvotes.gov.
Your vote matters and has real-life impacts on our community. Have you made a plan to vote? You can vote early at your voting center before Election Day, and your employer must let you go with paid time off. You can also vote by mail by requesting a ballot from the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. If you have any questions or problems voting, call or send a text to 866-OUR-VOTE. That's 866-687-8683.